everybody, and welcome back to the movie review section of Talk of the Town. And here I am with the awesome Eileen Maher. How are you, Eileen?
I'm good, Brian. I'm good.
It's been a long time.
It has been way too long because I have such a huge long list of so many things that I've seen. I don't even know where to begin. So I'm trying to edit and I'm trying to cut, but you know how I love to talk. So
go ahead. I'm going to let you just roll right into it.
I'm going to start with a couple of movies that are still in the theaters. The first one is called Juno. Juno marks the screenwriting debut of 29-year-old Chicago native Diablo Cody. She actually wrote a very interesting book that I read. It's called Candy Girl, A Year in the Life of an Unlikely Stripper. This is a girl who grew up middle America, middle class. One day decided, you know what, I think I'd like to be a stripper. I think we might have talked about this before when I was saying we're going to see Juno.
I think it was off air.
Did it for a year, wrote a book about it, a very fairly popular book, and from that she's written this screenplay for Juno. It's directed by 30-year-old Canadian Jason Reitman, and the most recent thing that he's directed is Thank You for Smoking with Aaron Eckhart, another really funny movie if you've never seen that. And Jason Reitman is the son of Ivan Reitman, and he's, of course, most famous for Ghostbusters and Stripes, those movies. Anyway, Juno is the story of offbeat teenager Juno McGuff. I was thinking like McGruff, the crime dog, who, when she discovers that she's become pregnant from her one and only sexual encounter, comes to terms with just what it means to be responsible.
Talk about the luck of the draw.
It happens for one's actions on her own terms. The story starts off a little unbelievably as we see Juno proclaiming loudly for all to hear at the local convenience store that she is taking yet another pregnancy test just to be sure. I found this behavior a little hard to believe, but that's the wonder of Juno. She never seems to do what you would expect of her.
Okay.
The film has an incredible supporting cast. Her dad and stepmom, played by J.K. Simmons, and you'll recognize him from the Spider-Man movies. He plays the newsman who kind of runs everything and hires Peter Parker to be a photographer. And Allison Janney plays her stepmom. You'll recognize her from The West Wing. They are forthright, they are upfront, they are supportive without being overbearing. They offer any help they can, but also make it clear that they are not going to be surrogate babysitters. During an ultrasound, Juno's stepmom really bares her teeth at the sonographer when she feels she has slighted Juno. And when Juno is feeling at her lowest, it is her dad who lifts her out of her funk by proclaiming his undying love and support of her. The real standout of the film, however, is Jennifer Garner as hopeful adoptive mom Vanessa Loring. You can feel the urgency and uncertainty that Vanessa faces every minute, even when Juno agrees to allow the Lorings to adopt her child. Garner's face is taut, her movements stilted, and you just feel so anxious for her. Not so her cavalier husband Mark, played Peter Pan repressed by Jason Bateman. It becomes evident from his first meeting with Juno.
What? Played Peter Pan repressed?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
He plays the role, Peter Pan repressed. He'll never grow up, you know?
See, folks, I had to ask the question because I had no clue what she meant. Well, you're talking to me. They might have understood.
It becomes evident from his first meeting with Juno that it is not her unborn child that he's the most interested in. I know I mentioned Jason Bateman a lot because of Arrested Development, one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Well, along with Jason Bateman from Arrested Development is his son, George Michael, played by Michael Cera. He plays Juno's boyfriend, Paulie Bleecker, and he is wonderful in it. He's just so calm and so cool, and there's a great line in the movie where Juno says to him, she's visibly pregnant, he knows it's his child, they've made the plans to give the child up for adoption, and Juno says to Paulie, you're just the coolest person I ever know, and you don't even try, and in his just like cool expression goes, but I try really hard, to be cool. He's wonderful. Michael Cera is wonderful in this. A lot has been made of the film's pro-life message. Juno does a beautiful thing, but it is not without some regret. When Paulie Bleecker arrives at her bedside shortly after she delivers her baby, he decides not to even look at their child. The two go on, become real boyfriend and girlfriend, and end the film with a lighthearted song. A little too lighthearted and a little too easy on themselves. But a nice story, and one all of my girls enjoyed. A great conversation starter for all of you.
Would you like to share with us the conversation?
With teen and teen children. Tons has been made of the movie. Is it pro-life? Is it? She actually does approach family planning center and goes in and, you know, starts to fill out some documents, and while on her way in runs into a classmate who's protesting outside, and comes and says, do you know that your baby has fingernails at this point in development? And she thinks about that and she goes in, and, you know, the consequences of teenage pregnancy are glossed over quite a bit, I feel. But I did like it. The kids liked it. Great conversation starter. I did actually allow my 9-year-old to see it. It's rated PG-13. There are, of course, some sexual innuendos. There's some straight talk about sex. And I just think it's a really important movie, especially for young girls and their parents to see and hopefully talk about.
All right.
Next is The Bucket List. Directed by 60-year-old Bronx native Rob Reiner, and that's Carl Reiner's
I like the
son.
name.
Bucket List, yeah. And you'll know him probably best. He was Meathead and All in the Family, and he has directed some movies that I really haven't been thrilled with. I did not like Princess Bride. I did not like When Harry Met Sally.
I do not like Green Eggs and Ham.
But he will always be one of my favorite directors for directing Spinal Tap. And if you've never seen Spinal Tap,
I've
go
never
get
seen.
it. Hysterical. The Bucket List stars two of the greatest actors ever, Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman, as they enter into the twilight of their careers. By no means does this mean that either has lost the edge that makes them a pleasure to watch in almost anything they do. Jack Nicholson plays Edward Cole, owner of a chain of for-profit hospitals, who, chasing nothing more than the
I thought they were all for profit. The
it's
prices
kind of a
they
dangerous precedent that's come along. There are actually more and more for-profit hospitals. But anyway, he's chasing nothing more than the bottom line for so long. He gets an ironic slap in the face when he finds himself a patient in one of his own facilities. It is here, while at one of his own hospitals, while being treated for cancer, that Edward befriends Carter Chambers, played by Morgan Freeman, who is further down the road in his cancer treatment. The two become friends, and when both learn at the same time that their treatments are failing, they decide, with Edward's vast financial resources, to live out the things they have written on their bucket lists. Things you want to do before you kick the bucket. I know it sounds cutesy, and I was expecting melodrama. I was pleasantly surprised that that is not the case at all. I was hesitant to see this movie. I saw the previews. I was like, oh, this is going to go one of two ways, and I can happily tell you that it went the best possible way it could. It was, you're never made to feel sorry for these two, only to revel in their own realizations and experiences. If only we could make our own bucket lists.
You don't have one?
No.
Oh, come on. Everybody has a bucket list.
Not wait until death was imminent to do the things we all long to do. The film is spiritual without being preachy, uplifting without being sappy and overly sweet. The friendship is truly the best gift either could ask for in his waning days. And it is this believable connection of two very different people that makes the bucket list rise above the melodramatic drivel that I was anticipating.
Did they seem like real cancer patients?
You know, they did a really nice job of portraying an oncology ward. And, you know, the funny thing about it is,
and coming from a nurse, that's a good compliment. Because
yeah, you know, Jack Nicholson in his hospitals, they didn't want they want all the rooms to be semi-private. He doesn't want anybody to have private rooms. And the push is more and more these days in hospitals to have private rooms, which is a good thing and a bad thing. What I've noticed as a nurse when I used to work on the floors, when we'd have the older people...
What were you doing on the floor?
in
what is she talking about?
You know what I mean? Working on the floor, not working in the ER, where I'd see patients day after day. You'd find patients, especially elderly patients, if they were put into a private room, they tended to lose a lot of their mental faculties very quickly, where if they had a roommate and there was some conversation and there was some interaction, it seemed to do better. And here's a man who, because he's cheap and has decided to keep his hospital semi-private, because of that, he meets Morgan Freeman.
Who changed his life.
Who does, and I'm not so sure that, you know, granted, when I was in the hospital, unfortunately, one time for a very extended period of time, and I was very grateful that I had a private room. But I was young, and I was pregnant, and I wanted to just
now that you're old,
sleep.
Now that you're old, you're going to send me.
But it's, you know what I mean? It's nice if you don't get lonely. You have somebody to talk to. So anyway, 2 thumbs up for Juno. That was PG-13. 2 thumbs up for Bucket List.
Man, she's on a roll this week. Last time you came
here,
everything was in the bucket.
I'm going to only talk at length about things that I liked, and then I'll briefly.
All right, let me just check the time because you know I think they cut you off last month. Yeah, we're okay.
Next is Charlie Wilson's War. It's rated R, and it's directed by 76-year-old German-born Mike Nichols. And interesting, Mike Nichols started the Second City Improv Group, He's married to Diane Sawyer, as you probably know, and he's directed some
I didn't know that.
And he's directed some of probably the most classic American films ever. The Graduate, Catch-22, Primary Colors, which was wonderful, with John Travolta as a Clinton-esque guy running around town, and Working Girl, Melanie Griffith's big breakout role. Charlie Wilson's War appears at first to be a lighthearted romp about a group of 3 eccentric, eclectic, but very powerful characters who band together to aid Afghanistan in defeating the Russian invading forces in the 80s. These 3, Julia Roberts, never more provocative as born-again socialite Joanne Herring, Tom Hanks, never more charming or sexy as Texas Representative Charlie Wilson, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, who is everywhere. He is just in everything all of a
You
sudden.
have elevated those 3 actors right up to the top.
I'll tell you, he has never been more potent, powerful, and yes, even sexy as portly renegade FBI operative Gust Avrapatos.
I don't think she liked this movie.
Based on the book of the same name, the film details the covert mission that seemed destined for failure. It's fast-paced, with scenes of humor seamlessly meshing with scenes of the Afghanis' people desperate struggle to survive against an overwhelmingly better-equipped invading force. I was mesmerized from the start. The movie is a quick 90 minutes, but never feels like it's skimping on details. It is a tightly wound tale of intrigue and makes it clear that it only takes a few powerful people to get things done once they've put their minds to it. An incredible, incredible movie.
Was this based on a true story?
This is again, it's supposed to be a true story. All of these people are real. All the names of the characters I just gave you are real people. Again, it was a covert mission. So how much is going to actually come out, I don't know. But boy, you watch it and you think, this is really funny, this is really enjoyable. And then the more you watch it, you're like, oh my God, no wonder we're in the state we're in now. You can just see how one piece of the puzzle leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. And a great final scene in the movie is where Charlie Wilson is again now trying to get more funds for Afghanistan. Now they've driven the Russian invading forces out because of his help, but now they've got 50% of the Afghani population is 19 years old or younger. So he goes back to these people and asks for more funding.
No wonder the Taliban
of course. And he says, "Can't you give me some money for? Let's do some social things. How about some schools? How about some hospitals? How about some housing?" It's just very, very.
So we create some of our own problems.
Well,
there was a void there, and obviously
all I can say is
the bad guys
please
took over
try to
the
catch
void.
it while it's out in the theaters.